She ruled the courtroom with an iron voice, built an empire worth hundreds of millions, and became a fixture in American homes for over 2 decades. But behind the sharp wit and iconic robes was a woman fighting on all fronts, against ruthless networks, a judgmental public, and cracks forming inside her own family. What nearly tore her marriage apart? What medical emergency brought production to a halt? At 82, her life looks nothing like the powerhouse image she built, and now it's beginning to show. The rise of Judge Judy. In 1972, a sharp-tongued, no-nonsense prosecutor walked into Manhattan's family court, and the room instantly shifted. She didn't need to shout, because her words sliced through excuses, and her presence commanded attention at a time when female prosecutors were nearly unheard of, especially in the tough, male-dominated courts of New York City. Judith Sheindlin earned her law degree from New York Law School in 1965, but it wasn't until 1972, 7 years and 2 children later, that she began working as a prosecutor in the Manhattan Family Court. She chose family law not because it was glamorous or prestigious, but because it dealt with real people and real consequences. And for Judy, the human element always mattered more than the headline. Her job was brutal. She wasn't dealing with high-profile white-collar crimes or corporate lawsuits. She was facing children issues, parental problems, and cases of neglect that kept her up at night. Her courtroom was chaotic, heartbreaking, and deeply flawed. But Judy stood out, especially because she had no tolerance for excuses, no patience for legal jargon, and no fear of authority. She believed that the justice system needed to be fast, clear, and most importantly, fair. And this approach earned her a reputation. By 1982, Judy had impressed enough people to be appointed as a judge in New York's family court. At a time when most judges were still white men in conservative suits, Judy was already disrupting the norm. She wore her black robe, but underneath it was the same direct, no-nonsense woman who believed that accountability was the foundation of justice. And she wasn't afraid to embarrass lawyers, social workers, or even defendants if they weren't doing their jobs properly. This made her both feared and respected in courtrooms across the city. Her promotion to supervising judge in 1986 was handed to her because she was effective. Her docket moved faster than most. Her rulings were consistently upheld, and she pushed her staff to meet her standards. In her eyes, family court wasn't about who had better lawyers. It was about protecting kids and giving struggling families a straight answer, not another delay. Still, Judy was just one judge among hundreds. Her name wasn't in headlines, and she wasn't on TV. That didn't happen until 1993, when a reporter from the Los Angeles Times caught wind of her unique courtroom style and wrote a profile that described her as a tough-talking family court judge who doesn't suffer fools. That article caught the attention of the producers at 60 Minutes, and before long, CBS had a camera crew filming her in action. This segment changed everything, and millions of people finally saw what insiders in New York's legal world had known for years. Judy wasn't just smart, she was also entertaining. Television executives immediately saw the potential. Court shows had existed before, but they were mostly fictional or overproduced. What Judy offered were real cases, real litigants, and a real judge who didn't have time for nonsense. And so, in 1996, Judge Judy premiered in syndication, airing on daytime TV across the country. It was a simple format: small claims cases, petty disputes, and a sharp-tongued judge who always got to the point. But people couldn't stop watching. Within just a few years, Judge Judy became the highest-rated courtroom show on television. But more importantly, it changed the way court shows were made and who they were made for. Judy spoke directly to the audience, not through a legal filter, but with plain language and common sense. She wasn't afraid to call out lazy parenting, irresponsible decisions, or obvious lies. Her catchphrases, "Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining," and "If it doesn't make sense, it's not true," became part of pop culture. And her approach remained fast, clear, and final. For 25 straight years, Judge Judy dominated daytime ratings. It wasn't just a hit, it was a phenomenon. It drew millions of viewers every day and won 3 Daytime Emmy Awards. In 2006, she earned a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. But even as her salary skyrocketed, eventually reaching a record-breaking $47 million per year, Judy kept filming in the same no-frills courtroom set, using the same format and delivering the same results. Off-screen, her success helped reshape how women in law were viewed, especially on TV. She wasn't a sidekick or a supporting character. She was the one in charge. And she stayed in charge even as the TV landscape changed and newer, flashier shows came and went. By the time the final episode aired in 2021, she had presided over more than 12,500 cases. She had gone from being just a celebrity judge to being a symbol. But while her courtroom success was gaining momentum, what most people didn't see was that her personal life was unraveling just as fast. Her love life and marital crisis. While Judy Scheindlin was building a legal reputation that few could rival, her personal life was far more complicated and far less in her control. Before the television offers and multi-million-dollar contracts, Judy was a young mother trying to balance ambition with expectation. In 1964, she married Ronald Levy, a fellow lawyer who seemed to share her drive, at least on the surface. They had 2 children together and built what many might call a conventional life. But underneath that routine was a growing disconnect. Ronald wanted Judy to settle into a more traditional role. Homemaker first, attorney second. But that was never going to work for her. She had spent too many years fighting to earn her place in a courtroom filled with men who assumed she was the assistant. Giving that up just to soothe someone else's ego wasn't a sacrifice she was willing to make. She kept moving forward in her legal career while the distance between them quietly widened. There were no dramatic public arguments or tabloid scandals, but by 1976, the marriage had collapsed. Judy was clear-eyed about why it ended. He didn't support her growth, and she refused to shrink to make the marriage work. Not long after that, she met Jerry Scheindlin, a judge and author with a sharp legal mind and a brash personality that matched her own. Their connection was fast and intense, and they tied the knot in 1977. On paper, it seemed like a perfect pairing. Both had courtroom experience, strong opinions, and a shared understanding of what it meant to carry professional pressure. But no amount of compatibility could protect them from what came next. In 1990, Judy began struggling emotionally with the loss of her father, Murray Bloom, the man she called her hero. His death was a seismic emotional blow, and Judy, who had always prided herself on clarity and strength, found herself in a storm of grief that she didn't know how to process. She needed comfort and someone to carry her, even briefly, the way she had carried others for years. Jerry, blunt as ever, didn't step into that role the way she had hoped. And instead, she found herself feeling alone. In an interview, Jerry recounted the moment that ended everything, saying, "She said to me, 'If you can't maneuver this, I'm going to divorce you,' and I said, 'Oh yeah? I dare you.' And the next day, I got divorce papers. The next day. So that was the end of that." It shocked everyone who knew them. Despite their sharp edges, they'd always seemed perfect for each other. But Judy wasn't interested in emotional ambiguity. When something didn't work, she acted decisively. And in that moment, she believed the marriage had run its course. But life has a way of creating space for clarity once the dust settles. In the months following their split, something unexpected happened. They missed each other, not out of habit or loneliness, but because they realized the core of their connection hadn't gone anywhere. Judy later said, "I like being married. I missed him. Jerry, in his own way, admitted that no one ever matched her. He said, "I missed her presence the very first week that we were separated. It was the first time in years that we didn't get to see each other every single day. It was such a strange experience." By 1991, just 1 year after their divorce, they quietly reconciled and remarried. Since then, they've remained married, often poking fun at each other in interviews, but never downplaying the years of effort it took to stay together. In many ways, Judy's marriages mirrored her courtroom presence. She didn't tolerate disrespect, she expected accountability, and she always made decisions with a clear mind. But unlike a court case, love wasn't about verdicts. It was about choosing to keep showing up, even after the structure breaks. Judy had learned that the hard way, and so had Jerry. Still, no matter how well the marriage was patched up, time doesn't wait for anyone. Their bond would soon be tested in a very different way that had nothing to do with arguments or ultimatums. The health scare that changed everything. In 2011, something happened on the set of Judge Judy that stopped production cold. For a woman known for her lightning-quick delivery and razor-sharp focus, the change was immediate and terrifying. In the middle of taping a case, Judy's speech suddenly slowed, like she had been switched to slow motion. Her voice dragged, her face looked dazed, and her usual spark was gone in an instant. Everyone in the studio could tell something was very wrong. Producers didn't hesitate. Filming stopped immediately, and they called 911. The ambulance arrived quickly and rushed her to the hospital, where the doctors diagnosed her with a transient ischemic attack, often called a mini-stroke. It's a temporary blockage of blood flow to the brain, and although the symptoms can disappear within minutes, the warning it sends is deadly serious. A transient ischemic attack doesn't just fade and get forgotten. It means something bigger could be coming if nothing changes. Judy had been lucky, but she also knew luck wasn't a strategy. Judy spent some time under hospital observation, and soon enough, her speech was back to normal. Luckily, she didn't need rehab, and there was no long recovery process. But the experience shook her. Later, she opened up about the experience, describing it as a good lesson. She didn't downplay it or dramatize it, because for her, it was simply a wake-up call that even the strongest bodies have limits, and hers had just sent her a warning. From that point on, Judy changed how she lived. She began working out daily, sticking to routines that emphasized heart health and balance. She cleaned up her diet, focusing more on fresh, unprocessed foods and staying active outside of the courtroom. And most importantly, she began taking Plavix, a medication that helps prevent blood clots and reduces the risk of future strokes. She didn't miss a beat at work. Taping resumed, and Judge Judy continued its run without any public disruption. Most fans never even knew the episode existed. That was exactly how she wanted it to be: private, controlled, and behind her. But those close to her noticed the subtle shift. Her days were managed more carefully. Her schedule included space to rest. And for someone who built a career on doing everything faster than everyone else, that alone was a major change. But despite the health scare and her disciplined response, it would soon become clear that not all storms come from within. Some come from people around you, and not even the sharpest judge could stop the criticism that was about to hit her. The controversial side of Judge Judy. For over 25 years, Judge Judy didn't just dominate daytime television. It ruled it. The show pulled in millions of viewers daily, held its top spot with almost no competition, and turned Judy Sheindlin into one of the highest-paid hosts on TV. But in 2021, after a quarter century at the top, CBS pulled the plug. To outsiders, it looked like a natural end to a long-running show, but to Judy, it was anything but that. The trouble began when CBS made a business decision that Judy felt crossed a personal line. Instead of continuing with fresh episodes of Judge Judy, CBS chose to pay a staggering $99 million for the rights to air reruns. That move effectively ended production, even though Judy was ready and willing to keep going. At the same time, CBS quietly sidelined another courtroom show she had helped create, Hot Bench, a panel-style format featuring 3 judges that she personally developed and produced. In Judy's view, it was a betrayal. Not just a programming change, but a clear signal that the network no longer respected what she had built. In an interview, she said, "You disrespected my creation, and you were wrong. Not only in disrespecting my creation, but also your gamble in what you put in its place." It wasn't just about losing airtime, it was about control. Judy had spent her entire career making decisions, setting standards, and calling the shots. To have her show shut down in favor of reruns and to see Hot Bench minimized felt like more than a business decision. It felt like a deliberate attempt to erase her influence from the network she had helped elevate. And while CBS never framed it as a conflict, Judy made it clear that she wasn't staying quiet. She walked away from the network, launched a new show, Judy Justice, on Amazon's Freevee platform, and kept doing what she did best. But even as she settled into her next act, more difficult headlines began to surface. And this time, they didn't come from network politics. They came from inside those close to her. It started with murmurs of former staffers who began speaking to media outlets about what they described as a toxic work environment behind the scenes of Judge Judy. But the rumors didn't go away. Instead, they grew louder and harder to ignore. Much of the controversy centered around Judge Judy's longtime executive producer, Randy Douthat. Former employees accused him of creating a hostile workplace, marked by inappropriate behavior, discrimination, and intimidation. The most serious claims came from Courtney Bullock, a producer who filed a lawsuit alleging harassment. According to court documents and press reports, Bullock claimed that Douthat had created a culture where inappropriate comments were brushed off and that her complaints were ignored or dismissed. She alleged that after speaking up, she was sidelined and eventually forced out. In addition to the harassment claims, several former employees said the casting process for litigants had long been tainted by racial bias. They alleged that producers were instructed to avoid booking too many black litigants in a single episode, or to downplay cases involving people of color. These weren't just uncomfortable stories. They were explosive, especially given the image the show had built over the years as being about fairness and no-nonsense justice. Other allegations were less publicized but still damaging. Reports claimed that some senior staff, including Douthat, had been known to drink on set or belittle junior employees. Several former crew members described the environment as one where being extra cautious was part of the job, and retaliation was always a possibility if someone spoke out. The accusations painted a very different picture from the tightly controlled courtroom viewers saw on screen. And the big question became, how much did Judy know? In interviews, Judy said she had no knowledge of any misconduct. She defended her team's overall integrity, stating that she surrounded herself with loyal professionals and that she trusted them to do their jobs. She also continued to support Douthat publicly, calling him a brilliant producer and a key part of the show's success. But that wasn't enough for everyone. Critics argued that for someone who built a career on accountability, her silence on the deeper systemic issues, especially those involving race and gender, felt like a contradiction. They pointed out that as the face of the show, Judy bore responsibility not just for the rulings on air, but for the environment behind the scenes. There were no legal consequences for Judy personally. She was never named in the lawsuits, but the reputational damage was real. For some fans, it was the first time they questioned the fairness of the judge they had trusted for decades. For others, it raised broader questions about how power operates quietly in television and who gets protected when complaints are made. Still, Judy didn't dwell on the criticism. She moved on, kept filming Judys, and rarely commented publicly on the allegations again. But the stories remained online, in court records, and in the memories of those who once worked on the show. And even as Judy tried to move forward, the shadows from her past controversies weren't easily shaken. Even before the final seasons of Judge Judy, criticism over how Judy Sheindlin handled certain cases had started to grow louder. What was once seen as refreshing bluntness began to sound to some like bullying. And one particular case became a turning point in how audiences and critics started to view her courtroom demeanor. In what would become known online as the herpes case, Judy awarded $5,000 to a woman who claimed her ex-boyfriend had knowingly given her a disease. The case aired as a classic example of small claims drama with a quick, decisive ruling. But soon after the episode aired, new information came to light that directly contradicted the decision. The man accused in the case later presented medical evidence showing he didn't have herpes at all. The ruling, while final on the show, looked careless in hindsight. The backlash was immediate. Critics argued that Judy had made a snap judgment without sufficient evidence and had publicly shamed someone based on nothing more than testimony and emotion. For a courtroom show that prided itself on facts and finality, the mistake felt glaring. Even though the payout was small by legal standards, the reputational damage for the man involved was far more serious. And for viewers, it raised an uncomfortable question about how many other rulings had been made that way. But the criticism didn't stop at one case. Over the years, some viewers began noticing a pattern. Litigants who struggled to express themselves, those who spoke broken English, lacked formal education, or didn't understand legal jargon, were often met with impatience and sarcasm. Judy was known for cutting people off mid-sentence, scolding them for not staying on topic, or mocking what she saw as poor life choices. However, what made her beloved in some circles made her unbearable to others. Social media and legal blogs started speculating at what they saw as classism in her courtroom tone. Poor defendants, especially those who arrived in messy circumstances, were often dismissed as irresponsible or lazy. These reports also claimed that litigants who couldn't afford lawyers or struggled with complicated paperwork sometimes found themselves not just losing their cases, but being shamed in front of millions of viewers. Judy had always said her goal was to teach people personal responsibility. And for many years, that message resonated. But as the world changed, and as conversations around poverty, mental health, and systemic inequality gained traction, her brand of bluntness started to feel outdated to a more socially aware audience. Critics said she was no longer just tough on bad behavior. She was tone-deaf to the real-world challenges many litigants faced. But the controversies didn't stop there. Judys, her streaming comeback, launched with fanfare, but one casting choice quickly became a lightning rod. Judy's granddaughter, Sarah Rose, was brought in as the show's clerk. It was presented as a passing of the torch. After all, Sarah had gone to law school, admired her grandmother, and was stepping into the courtroom legacy. But the reaction online was mixed at best. Many fans accused Judy of blatant nepotism. Sarah had never been a part of the Judge Judy team, and viewers questioned whether she had the experience or presence to hold such a visible role. Others pointed out that while Judy had a long track record of mentoring sharp, capable women in TV courtrooms, this time it looked more like a family favor than a professional choice. The criticism intensified when episodes aired. Sarah, though polite and well-spoken, didn't carry the same energy as Judy's longtime bailiff, Petrie Hawkins Bird, who had been with her since the 1996 debut. Fans immediately noticed his absence, and many were upset that Bird hadn't been invited to join the new show at all. He later revealed publicly that he was never even asked to audition. The move added fuel to the accusations that Judys was more about personal loyalty than professional merit. For Judy, these moments didn't derail her, but they did chip away at the untouchable image she had cultivated for decades. She didn't respond directly to most of the criticism, staying focused on production and continuing to tape new episodes. But outside the set, the conversation had shifted. People were no longer just debating her rulings, they were asking whether the values her courtroom promoted were still relevant in the current cultural climate. For a while, it felt like Judy Sheindlin had disappeared. No more daily broadcasts or viral courtroom clips. But she hadn't vanished. Judy simply changed course. And now, well into her 80s, she's still working, still producing, and still determined to shape how justice is understood, even if fewer people are paying attention. Where is Judge Judy now? Though she's no longer on television every afternoon like clockwork, Judy Sheindlin still hasn't faded into quiet retirement. In fact, she still shows up at public events, often looking sharper and more put together than people half her age. Just months ago, she was spotted at a high-profile luncheon where she was introduced by Samuel L. Jackson. Observers noted her perfectly styled hair, signature tailored outfit, and the unmistakable presence she's always carried. Physically, Judy still looks strong. While her voice may carry a bit more age than it used to, the energy behind her eyes hasn't gone anywhere. She's not trying to look younger, she's simply making it clear that age has never defined her pace. When she's not working, she splits her time between several stunning properties. Her primary residence is a massive, roughly $9 million estate in Newport, Rhode Island. The mansion, perched along the coastline, features sprawling gardens, ocean views, and the kind of quiet privacy few public figures can afford. She also owns a 17,000-square-foot estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, a place she's had for years, and reportedly uses as a more private family retreat. The property is classic East Coast luxury, understated from the outside, opulent on the inside, and surrounded by the kind of manicured grounds that practically whisper old money. She recently sold her New York City penthouse, a sleek high-rise home that once gave her direct access to the center of Manhattan. It was a sign of shifting priorities. Judy no longer needs to be in the city full-time. Her empire isn't tied to a studio schedule anymore, and the fast pace of New York may not be as appealing as it once was. At home, Judy's world revolves around her family. She has 5 children, 2 biological and 3 stepchildren from Jerry's side, and she's now a grandmother 13 times over. Despite her iron reputation on screen, those close to her describe her as deeply loyal to her family, especially her grandchildren. Professionally, Judy has moved into a different kind of television. Her latest show, Justice on Trial, launched on Prime Video in 2025. It's not a courtroom arbitration show. Instead, it's a true crime docuseries that looks back on historic legal cases and re-examines them with a modern lens. Each episode recreates trials that captivated or confused the public, including infamous cases like the Menendez brothers and the Scopes monkey trial. The format blends actual trial transcripts with dramatized scenes, making it more narrative-driven than anything Judy has done before. She doesn't act as a real-world judge issuing rulings. Instead, she plays a lower court judge in reenacted scenes, while members of her tribunal justice team serve as the appeals panel. It's part scripted, part analysis, but the message behind it is serious. The show challenges the idea that the justice system always works the way it should. It asks viewers to consider whether the law has always been applied fairly, or whether, sometimes, the wrong people end up paying the price. Judy doesn't lecture viewers or deliver final verdicts. Instead, she participates in dramatized courtroom scenes that reflect different eras, complete with changing robes, hairstyles, and even the original robe she wore during her early years on television. though the trademark lace collar has been removed. These visual shifts help transport the audience into each time period, while still centering the message. Justice is not always black and white. There's a purpose to the project that goes beyond ratings. Judy says she hopes the show leaves viewers a little smarter, a little more skeptical, and a lot more aware that even judges can get it wrong. For someone who spent decades being the final authority on television, that admission is significant. Still, this new phase of her career hasn't drawn the kind of media attention she's used to. Justice on Trial airs on Prime Video, a platform that targets niche audiences, not daytime TV's broad demographic. And Judy Justice, airing on Amazon Freevee, has also flown under the radar for most viewers who aren't actively seeking it out. There are no longer billboards or viral promo clips flooding people's feeds. Judy's presence in pop culture has dimmed, not because she's faded, but because she's now operating in a different media landscape. She seems to prefer it that way. Her daily life is quieter now, but far from idle. She has no interest in golf or hobbies that keep her still. She thrives on productivity and structure. And while she doesn't tape 5 days a week anymore, she's still reviewing scripts, notes, and edits. What's changed most isn't her work ethic, it's her reach. In her prime, she spoke to tens of millions every week. Today, her shows speak to a few million, sometimes less, on streaming platforms. Her fan base has narrowed, her cultural visibility has dipped, and younger audiences often don't recognize her name unless they've heard about her from a parent or grandparent. She's aware of the generational divide. She's also aware that time doesn't pause, no matter how powerful you are. Judy Schindlin may not be a staple of daytime TV anymore, and she may never return to the peak visibility she once enjoyed, but she's still choosing what she does, how she does it, and who she shares it with. Would you love to see Judy make a comeback on television? Drop your answers in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.